Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Gaesbrook, otherwise known as the Intrepid Wino, and welcome to the new, home for Let's Taste. My girlfriend and I have moved house, and this is probably going to be the location for most of my Let's Taste videos. So I now officially have a tasting bench, which is pretty exciting, I can tell you. And yet another winery have very generously sent me some sample bottles. It's a winery that I've been familiar with, particularly having visited the location or the region, the big region that they are in Western Australia. But I don't think I've ever, maybe once, have I had the pleasure of tasting any of their wines. So the winery is Singlefile. They are in the Great Southern region of Western Australia. Great Southern is pretty enormous. It encompasses a lot of different sub-regions. There are other parts close by which usually tend to get kind of grouped in with it. But when it comes to Western Australia, there's Swan Valley just outside of Perth. There's Margaret River to the south. And then you've got this huge area of Great Southern. Those are typically the three most often referred to regions of the state. So Singlefile are a producer of a range of wines from different parts, I think, of the Great Southern region in Western Australia. And they have sent me 3 single vineyard white wines from 2015, so I thought I would open them all up and just talk a little bit about them. So I think maybe I'm going to guess the tasting order. So the first one I'm going to taste is the 2015 Semyon Sauvignon Blanc from Denmark, which is very much one of the key areas for Great Southern. Recommended retail price of 25 Australian dollars. I've got my plum white A glass to have a look at this wine. Quite clean and bright. There's a little bit of colour in there. There's a bit of yellow, but it's still fairly clean. Very exuberant, very juicy, classic Semyon Sauvignon Blanc. Tropical fruits, peach, kiwi, a bit of passion fruit. It's not overt, it's not really jumping out of the glass. It's intense, certainly, but they're quite elegant. Yeah, there's a little bit of herbal spice in there, but it definitely is very much about the exuberance of fruit on the nose. So let's taste. Very well contained wine. It has many of the key elements. Very good, very ripe fruit, but not overripe by any means. Generosity, consistent with the aromas. We are looking at some tropical fruits, maybe even moving into some stone fruits as well. Very good acidity, quite bracing, quite engaging acidity. There's a bit of palate carry through. I think Semyon Sauvignon is a good blend here. At 12.5% alcohol, it is certainly light and fresh, but there is some concentration on the palate as well. Possibly that is a vintage character, I'm not sure, but for $25 that is a really ripping, clean, fresh, very well structured, fruit-driven white wine. Let's move on to the second wine. Also, from the Sauvignon Blanc variety, this is a Fumé Blanc, which is pretty much, it's a term that is considered for Sauvignon Blanc that has some barrel work, either barrel fermentation or barrel maturation, maybe even both. Working with barrels for Sauvignon Blanc is something that is probably most common in Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé. I'm not sure, please don't quote me on this, but I think the Fumé Blanc possibly takes its name from Pouilly-Fumé in France. Sauvignon Blanc in its, its kind of New World homeland in New Zealand, particularly Marlborough, you tend to see it far more in stainless steel. But the barrel work for Sauvignon is a much more popular technique now, just because some people feel that it adds a little bit of complexity. So recommended retail of this one is $30. Let's have a look. Again, quite clean, quite light, a little bit less colour, to be honest. This one's a lot more subtle, more subdued, more elegant. It's probably more in the stone fruit realm, some white peach, maybe even a little bit of citrus as well. It's quite floral. It has a little bit of sort of subtle kind of savoury, mealy sort of lees derived elements as well, but quite complex on the nose. Let's taste. Yeah, the first one, the Sauvignon Blanc, was very exuberant on the front of the palate. This one has a little bit more in the mid palate. I think the way that the wine is made tends to sort of soften out the fruit a little bit and give it a little bit more subtlety, and that means for me the wine is balanced through the palate. There aren't really any crests or troughs at all. It's very composed through the palate. It has that kind of, it has a little bit of the briskness of some sort of citrus-like acids, not citric acid of course, citrus-like acidity. But the barrel work is very, very composed here. It doesn't really look oaky, so I think that this is a more complex style of Sauvignon Blanc than you may have encountered before, and it is a very elegant wine that I think if you like Sauvignon Blanc, but you also like the style of, say, Chardonnay, this one is a really interesting one to try. So I think this is an excellent Sauvignon Blanc wine. So far we're 2 for 2, looking good. The final wine is the Pinot Gris, which also has a recommended retail of $30, and it is from Pemberton, as was the Fumé Blanc. Very high quality bottles here, very high quality screw caps as well. Possibly even lighter in colour here. It has that kind of very, very delicate kind of greyish tinge you sometimes see in Pinot Gris. It's probably got a little bit more colour than the Pinot Grigio style, which tends to be a little bit lighter and crisper. Still fairly subtle aromatically. The fruit profile is moving into more orchard fruit, so pear, even a little bit of quince apple, some very ripe, slightly dried citrus notes as well. Maybe even some herbal notes too. Let's taste. This is certainly in that Pinot Gris realm. There's kind of ripe characters in there. The fruit is showing definitely in that sort of riper, sort of red, delicious apple, and lovely green pear notes. It's rounded. It's also focused. Initially, I got a little bit of warmth. That it finishes quite clean. It's probably not taken to the extreme for Pinot Gris. It doesn't have heaps of weight and alcohol, and possibly with some residual sugar. It sort of sits somewhere between what I consider classic Pinot Gris and Pinot Grigio in style. So I think this is an excellent white wine. The fruit certainly has varietal character. It is characteristic of Pinot Gris. But as far as the wine style, I think it could be pushed a little bit further into that kind of classic Pinot Gris realm, just to get a little bit more weight. Because at the moment, it's a lovely drinking wine. I wonder how well it would stack up with food, and whether it could, you'd probably have to slightly reassess what food you might match with it, as opposed to, again, what I could consider to be more classic Pinot Gris. But these are three exceptional white wines, exceptional value from a part of Australia that continues to impress not just myself, but the wine media and wine trade here in Australia. So I definitely would hunt out these wines. They are great, really, really good. So thank you very much, Singlefile, for generously sending me these bottles. Patrick, thank you very much. Of course, I am always open to tasting more wines, sharing my impressions. Of course, I'm excited about all wine in Australia, and I hope you enjoy my videos. So thanks very much, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, maybe even leave me a comment. Come and visit me at intrepidwino.com. I've got lots more Let's Taste videos that I've already done, and many more to come, I'm sure. But until the next time, cheers.